different challenges that we're facing. We thought this would be kind of a good discussion to kind of, again, just kind of share across and see what commonalities we might have. And then also for each of us individually to kind of be sparking some ideas about, hey, where do we want to focus our energies going forward with WISE in particular for process improvements and identifying those things, and then working those through the process and leveraging the benefit of the group. So that's what we thought we'd do today. They've got a Mentimeter poll, and then we'll go through those, and we'll keep it again kind of open for discussion. And Cello and Scott, they're really good at helping kind of ask us questions and give us uncomfortable silence to think a little bit, and that's okay. So we'll do that for the first about 20 minutes, and then after that, Cello's got some updates and really thinking about how do all different pieces fit together in terms of WISE integration of people, process, technology, and change management. I think I'm kind of wrestling with that with the change effort we're doing. Like, we're focusing on process, but gosh, there's a lot of people components to that, as well as technology, as well as change management. So trying to think about how those fit together. And I really heard that same theme from Jenny when she shared the work she's doing on the CIP planning improvements that they've been making, and then Duncan as well at DC Water. So I figure that's really going to be a common issue, I think, for all of us, is thinking about how all these pieces fit together. So that's kind of the agenda we've got, and then we'll wrap up with some thoughts about future meetings. We've got kind of open agenda for the next couple of meetings, and want to make sure that we're planning some topics and things that are beneficial for folks. So that was my intro. So any questions, I guess, and then Cello and Scott, I'll let you guys take over the mic.
Okay. Thank you. I put into the chat line this www.menti.com. You can use it either from your phone or your computer if you open a different window with a browser. And when you go there, you can go to the, you can use this code to log in. And I'm gonna be juggling windows. I'm going to be juggling windows here. So
it's working.
It's working? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so let me just get rid of this. So you should have, when you log in, you should have these, your page will look a little different, but it will ask you, we're trying to figure out some general category of challenges that you may be experiencing in your organization. The next question will give you freedom to type in whatever you'd like to. But these are some of the ones that we proposed, and you can say, if you think that it really is a problem, then you can agree, or if it's just, whatever the range is. So we've got, because as we go through these exercises to work on CIP planning and delivery, we want to see if we're addressing the challenges that people have identified. It gives us guidance for whether we're meeting our objectives. So we have 12 people, so we'll wait till we get at least to maybe 10. Scott, are you going to vote?
No.
Okay, so till we get about 9 or 10, we'll, and you can see dynamically how it changes as more people vote. Okay. We'll just give people a few more minutes. If anybody has trouble accessing the site or something, let me know.
Yeah, in chat, if you just click on the link and put in the new password, it should work.
What's
Yeah, this
that code again?
4093 9115. 4093 9115.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we got 7. Let's wait just a couple of minutes. It seems like, you know, it's interesting curve. It's an interesting curve. So let me know, Dan, you think we have 7? You let me know when you want to move on.
Anybody else wanting to get their votes in? Still working on it?
Okay, we got 8. So you think, Dan, we can move on? So when we go to the next question, sorry, 9. Yeah, we're there.
There we go.
We're there.
Yeah, it looks like those are, everybody's kind of right in the middle. A little bit further to the right on kind of those last 3. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So the next one is, sorry. It is very similar, but if you could just type in whatever you see as barriers to successfully implementing. And here you should be able to type in any number of comments you like, but it will also give us a list of challenges that combines with the previous list, so that as we move forward, we can always check, well, are we addressing, you know, the pain points? So now you can just go to town and enter, you know, any statement you feel are relevant.
Yeah,
Or
particularly if there were any that were missing from that initial list.
Exactly, yes. Well, we got the first one. Hmm. Hmm. Wow, very good comments. Wow, excellent, excellent stuff. This will be so helpful in seeing if we're addressing the stuff that would be helpful. Wow, these will be very, very, very helpful. Very helpful. I'm going to take all of these into a spreadsheet that I will post to our site, so that we can always have it as a reference. Very interesting.
Anyone want to talk about any of these?
Maybe, Scott, we just let
Get
people
through the rest?
get through the rest, and then we can come back to them. How's that?
Okay, sounds good.
I think there would be good points for discussion. This is very good interaction and collecting intelligence. Wow, very, very interesting. It's obvious that the folks on the call are familiar with this. Then you can let me know when you think we want to move forward.
Yeah, wow.
I'm not trying to rush. I'm not trying to rush,
No.
but this is very useful. So you let me know when you think.
Yeah, it looks like we got 22 responses. Pretty awesome. So yeah, keep typing if you're still typing away. Anybody that need more time, you can raise your hand.
Oh, wow. Excellent stuff.
All right, we're up to 24.
Looking at all these barriers, we may as well give up. I'm just
No,
kidding.
No,
I'm
no.
just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Let's stick together. So it's making me feel better. I'm not alone. A lot of these are common things I see too. Like, right, like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Okay, Dan, how about we
I
move
think
on?
go
Is
ahead.
that
Let's
okay?
go ahead.
Okay, so the next one is to take on a positive side. What types of things could help improve? And to get us a sense, if you could just order these in order of effectiveness in your sense, what kinds of things? You'll get a chance to freely, just identify other options, but these are just things that we're trying to get sort of some sense for maybe different aspects and priorities.
If you're still on the last question, I think there's a button that says they'll let you go to the next question.
Yeah, good.
This one takes a little bit longer prioritizing and stuff, so. We received some really interesting feedback from the change management team on change management issues. Yeah, we've got one. Yeah, some interesting things are shaping up, really interesting. Maybe just one more and we'll move on to get the full sample. Dan, I'm looking to you as the lead to let me know when to push the button.
Yeah, no, I kind of got soaked into just looking looking at the rankings, but yeah, that's good. I think we had 8 on the first one, so unless
Okay.
anybody else, like I say, raise your hand if you're like, hey, I need another couple seconds. So good, yeah, I'd say go
Okay.
ahead.
So
Zanetta
so-
needs a couple seconds.
okay, sorry. I'll let me see if I can go back.
There you go.
Did it come back or no?
Yes.
Okay.
For the essence of time, Dr. Cello, just go ahead. I'm okay.
Okay.
So
So
thank you. I appreciate it.
I will. These ranking ones always take. And these are kind of what types of issues typically have adverse impact on CIP planning and delivery. Sort of where are the snakes in the grass in terms of your experience, your organization, just in terms of the category of issues. So there'll be again an opportunity to kind of type in things that are not in this slide. Oh, this one is zooming ahead. Oh yeah. All right. It's very interesting. The results are very interesting. So thanks everybody. And there's one more. And this is sort of, again, ability to typing anything you think would types of improvements that would have the most beneficial impact on CIP planning. So this gives you an opportunity to just provide thoughts that are not limited to those options that we had there. Options are good to look at the cross section. I mean, like how people agree, and this is good to collect all the ideas. So, and you can enter as many as you'd like. Maybe I should cue up some background music next time to let people relax a little bit. That's a thought.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, I'll work on it. It's interesting, very interesting, because it also, I think, will tie with some of the things that we're going to talk about, what is happening overall on the project. Wow, these are excellent comments. And they tie into all sorts of other things. This is really good. Yeah. So, Dan, did you want to ask people to raise hands if they still want to, or how did
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
Yeah, go
stay
ahead.
sort
Yeah,
of
if
on track.
you're still typing, raise your hand, and up to 22. That's pretty good. I think we had 24 last time. Oh, there we go.
Darren, sorry that I think you have to leave, right? Yeah, sorry about that, but thank you very much for your participation. We're taping this so you can watch, you can see the recording, but thank you for your participation.
We'll
Yep,
see if we
no
can
problem.
summarize some of these results and kick them back out too, because
Yes,
I'm interested
absolutely.
in seeing them.
Yes, I will put together a spreadsheet table. Then we'll share it. We'll discuss it and then post it. So let me just see. I think that this was the last one. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this is the last one. So thank you for your participation. I will go back to our slide deck. And I will replace all of these slides. They just show questions. I will take the results from the Mentimeter poll, put them in here, add a spreadsheet so you'll have access to all the information. So what the next item on the agenda was just to kind of put some things in perspective in terms of what is happening with other initiatives and teams on the project. And we have this focus on the people, the process, and the technology, which are the three components of how organizations create value. And then, there's monitoring performance, and then change management impacts based on the monitored performance and on the goals for the organization that they receive from upper management. So this is kind of the cycle of creation, value, and improvement. And this is the methodology that we're using on the WISE program to look at the maturity level of people, process, technology, change management, analyze where we are, where we would like to be, plan improvements, implement and monitor performance. So this is the mechanism for creating value on the left, and the methodology for improvement that applies to any of these components on the right. So you'll see that the first box is assessing system maturity. So we have 6 ongoing initiatives. These 3 here are related to business process improvement. The one that we're in, asset management, energy, and then the technology improvement is team analytics that looks at data analytics and technology. We have team people that looks at workforce and organization, and team that does change management. And for these steps apply to each of them, and then they connect. And I'll sort of show how this kind of from the beginning to where we start and where it ends. We can perform maturity assessment only on the organization and workforce, or only or process and technology, but the best is when we combine them. And when we combine them, this is for maturity assessment. We need a maturity model, and each one of these colored things is a component of maturity. These ones on the left side are for workforce and organization. The upper right corner is process, and lower right corner is technology. So we'll get to this in the end. But let's go through some steps to see how each one of these is actually generated. So when we start thinking about improvements, we can say, what is the scope of our improvement? Is it to just look at organization and workforce, in which case we would plan the maturity assessment? When you see this symbol, it means that if you were actually in a business process modeling software, if you clicked on this signal, you would get a diagram similar to this that would show the detail of the process underneath, how exactly we would do planning of maturity assessment. So I'm not going to go in that level of detail, but I'm going to start with this one, the maturity model and the maturity assessment for the people side of things. So we spent about a year with the work with this team, started with 400 ideas and boiled it down to 7 categories, and then a survey that has 18 questions, what we call tier 1 questions, that try to say on the level of maturity from very low, which is on the red end, to the green end, where are you when it comes, where is your organization when it comes to workforce and organizational culture? And these components, teamwork and collaboration, employee engagement, communication, feedback, reward recognition, responsibility and accountability, organizational values, and strategy performance. Each of them has 2 or 3 questions mostly that get to the bottom of this. And then we have a tool to analyze and to present the results. This has quite a bit of work has gone into it. So I can show you an example of how the results are presented. This is sort of the top level dashboard that was done in Power BI. Each one of the survey itself is built in Microsoft Forms. So basically you would send out a Microsoft Forms survey, you would get responses, the forms would generate an Excel file, the Power BI would tip into the Excel file, and you would get something like that looks like this. If you'd like to see this in more detail, I'd be delighted to, but I'm trying to cover all of them, so I can't go. But basically, it's giving you this is the color coding for each one of these 7 components of the maturity. And this shows that, you know, organizational strategy and performance is sort of in this neutral territory. And these are the ratings on questions 1, 2, and 3 that are applicable to organizational strategy and performance. This is for organizational values and so forth. And there are a couple of demographic questions. So for example, if I was in Power BI right now, if I clicked on finance, all the colors within results would change because it would only show results from the finance department. And if we looked at the role and we said, okay, how did executive management see it? It would change, or how the staff in the field see it, it would change. So it really allows you to slice and dice through all of these. So to show you just a little bit of detail, in Power BI, these are different tabs that you could go to. So this is the overall dashboard. But if you went to this one, the organizational strategy and performance, you would see the breakdown on the questions that were asked, what were the answers, and again, you could slice and dice based on the role. So I'm going to just stop right now and see if there are any questions. Scott, I'm sorry, I should have gone back to more detail on those questions that we had in the Mentimeter, but I flaked out, okay? We can come back to it later. Yeah, you're on mute. You're on mute, Scott, but I got you what you're saying. I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You were making peaceful gestures, yeah.
Yeah, we can come back.
So we showed what happens when you go down this road, the top, but you may want to be interested in investigating business processes and technology. So the first thing you would do is select a business process. And then you would look at some things. What is this process that you selected? What is it like? And then you could see whether the process is mature or not mature. If it's mature, you would just go to look at technology. But if the process is not mature, you may need to do some things about it before you go into selecting technology. And I'll explain this model next. how do we assess the maturity of our business process? That's not how effective it is, but just in general, some information about the process. So this we would consider, these are the categories that we have for assessing process maturity. And they have to, what kind of process is it? Is it highly complex? Is it CIP, or is it somebody calibrating a flow meter? What's the impact? Is it critical? If something goes wrong, nobody gets paid, or is it, very limited? So we have a structure to ask about questions that ask about this complexity. Then second, how much do we know about this process? Is this documented? And how do we use metrics for performance management? And then the second thing here is goals and performance measurements. Do we have goals defined? Do we have performance management? Are we using these goals and metrics in the management of the business process? So these are the things that this is a maturity model. The business process model that we're doing, BPMN, that is a system model. I'll mention this a bit later, but this is on the maturity side. And this work comes from a project that I've done, not under WISE, but a different WRF effort. So if, for example, we have a complex project, or calibrating a flow meter, is simpler, then it's much more important if it's how much information we have about it. If we know who's involved, the workflows, what decisions need to be made, resources, all the things that we're trying to, what data is required, where that data resides, all the things that we've been working on doing this BPMN modeling. And it's especially important if it's a complex process that we have this kind of documentation. So let's say that we have all this in place. Then we can look at technology, because, and when we look at technology, this is again work that was done on the Water Research Foundation project 5039, where I was the co-PI. And it will not be a survey in Microsoft Forms intentionally, because it's not intended to be sent to somebody and fill out a form, but it's intended to be discussed with all the stakeholders. So if we had documented the processes, we will know from the swim lanes who all the stakeholders are that will help us, guide us. So this is just, so this will be done actually supported by some spreadsheets that were built. And the maturity model for technology has these 4 layers on the right. On the bottom is, are we collecting the data that we need, or generating the data that we need? How do we manage this data? What kind of analytics we have in place? And what kind of capabilities are we providing back to the business side so they can make better decisions? So on the right is the maturity model. And on the left, the spreadsheet is the assessment tool. Again, it is not supposed to be fill out a survey. And actually, in some cases, the other assessments may also be done using workshops rather than, surveys. The one with the surveys is really mostly applicable to areas where that are related to people issues, where there are significant issues of confidentiality and so forth. But how the CIP planning process works shouldn't be on a need-to-know basis. So once we have, so we've shown that we did maturity models for business processes, for technology, and for the workforce. So that this information informs us on how do we go about change management. So we'll basically have information from these different assessments, and it will tell us how we're doing on each one of these things. So let me show a specific example. We get back to that circle where we see in the back. So we have what Ramona Harry from Baltimore said, So this is a 360-degree portfolio of maturity of in the organization, and it's a foundation for a systems thinking approach where we don't just look at a specific component, but we look at what is the interaction between these things. So imagine that that the maturity of these different things could be at different levels. So if, for example, we find out that you talk to the vendor and you want them to develop a decision support system, and what is kind of important for that vendor? It's important. Number one, do you have a documented business process that would be a map for them to know what decisions are that they need to support? How complex is and what is the impact of failure? What is the data required? And is it generated? Is it not generated? So if, for example, the other question is, what is employee engagement like? How much support that we can count on this initiative? And what's the status of teamwork and collaboration? So if you look at this picture, and if the vendor or the project manager on your side doesn't have a good sense for these things, you can see why so many technology applications go south, because these types of things are really good to know. I'm going to stop at this point and see if this makes sense for people. I'm going to start calling on people.
So Joe, I guess I thought of a question. I mean, I'm seeing all this stuff, and it's like, for me, I've been involved in this a little bit, and it's still like, whoa, this is a lot. It's like pretty kind of overwhelming, but I guess for my understanding, like, just what's the main, I think just this was a good example, but how would you describe like the main objective or purpose of this assessment tool for kind of those of us that are like on this call?
Yes. So the purpose of this assessment is that there are some things that we can do, what we can do, what we've learned so far, what we've been engaged in so far is to really look at, I think maybe on the next slide. So to really understand who's involved and stuff like that. But when it comes to implementation, and that's not something that we have really engaged in yet. So we can look at who's doing what and what decisions are, but in order to change it, some of these other things come into play. And a lot of people have found that implementing technology, that the biggest barriers really have to do with what people were also mentioning, to the barriers like silos, organizational silos, not having very good business requirements. So, yes, Scott?
No, I was just going to say just a couple additional thoughts is that one, we're engaged here in the CIP planning and execution. It's a journey and it has people and technology aspects and change management associated with it. And we're not saying that you have to implement all of this at once, but it's to give a holistic picture of what a journey might look like over the longer term that incorporates assessments on people and process and even change management in addition to CIP planning and delivery. So it gives you that that view. So it's and what we have are each of the different teams are coming at it from their point of view, but we want to make sure that we're giving an overall picture because ultimately it's a toolbox that's available to you to assess and improve. The second kind of point is that these assessments really evaluate as is. It evaluates where you are now with the idea in that continual improvement process. In that process, what you're really trying to do is improve and create a to be, for where you want to be, and then have action plans and performance management, change management that help you get there.
All right, looks like Duncan, you had your hand up. You had a comment or question?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention about technology is in most organizations, at least in DC water, we do have technology. What I've noticed that's been difficult is to try and convince people to change that technology to something else. Like if you are moving from one technology to another, it's a different way of approaching this where people they've been trained on that technology, they are comfortable with that technology, their institutional knowledge. Now you're saying, well, we want to go to a different technology, and that's where I've seen resistant and to change, because they will say, well, DC Water or any other organization, you're just wasting your money. Why fix it if it's not broke? And that component, I think it needs to be addressed a little bit different than if you don't have technology or if you don't have the process, because of some of these people are already used to that technology. And I think the approach you almost have to tell people the benefit of why we are making this change even before you start all these processes.
Yeah, it's a great comment, Duncan. Your comment made me raise my hand. So just to kind of feedback too, I mean, to me, it looks like these assessments, really to evaluate, like you said, Scott, to evaluate that as is to get like a clearer understanding of the problem. I will tell you on our end, just like this as-built thing we're working on, that slide you said about complexity, I think we all thought that was kind of a fairly simple process, but now that we're getting into it, it's like, wow, this is actually a little more complex than we thought. There's more people involved than we thought, and that kind of thing. So just kind of like I say, going through this process and engaging people, and I think as these tools continue to improve and get rolled out that you guys are getting put together, I think it'll help us to just get better clarity about like, what's the problem we're trying to solve? And like to Duncan's point, where are we? What do we have? Is the problem that the technology needs to change, or is it really just that people need to change? The people side of it need to change to leverage the technology we might already have. So yeah, this is good stuff. And so I'll leave it at that. And if anybody else has comments, raise your hand and chime in.
So maybe I can answer your question. What I've noticed is that buying technology is kind of a good exercise because it feels good. People are going shopping, they go to a conference, they see something that looks really cool, and so let's say that they start with, let's find technology that can help us do this. So this is the maturity of the technology they can look at, and they can say so, but they has to support the business process needs. So what are the steps? This first step is to say, what business process are we improving? Do we understand them? Number two, we have to define the requirements, the needs. That's what the vendor is going to ask you. Then we have to say, if we're looking at as is, are the required data being collected? Are we even getting the data we need? How is that data managed? Is it accessible? Is it easy to get to? What analytics and insights are in place? And how is this decision support being provided to give you better capabilities? So this is the cycle going this way when you analyze as is. And the trick is that it's done by different people. Defining the business requirements on the first level is really what the business side primarily should do. They need to define this. But then the technical people may say, okay, this is the status, the capability of our current assets, methods, tools, IT systems, data, and so forth. And then jointly they can identify the gaps and then plan and implement how to close it, which is then more implementation, identifying what's needed, but you don't have it. It's more of a business thing. This is more of a technical thing. So this is the mixture of who would have the primary role in or joint responsibility to go look at just technology implementation itself. But it's really not rocket science. And we do have a structure in place to approach this. Now, if you actually wanted to design a new system, you may want to go in a completely different direction. You may want to go clockwise and start with your business need and then say, what are the capabilities I want? And then, what business are we improving? What capabilities do we need? And then you would go here and say, what insights, information do I need? And then you would say, what type of analytics do I need to get that? And then how do I manage data to support the analytics? So you could go, when you're doing the planning, you can go actually the other way around. Does this make sense, Dan? So
Well, I think Scott had a comment. Go
Well,
ahead.
I was just going to say, this will sound anti-consultant, but a lot of consultants actually sell technology solutions and they don't link it to business processes and these other aspects that we're talking about here. And it just points out the importance of the integration and not just dealing with a particular business or not business, but technology solution and shiny objects. It deals with the underlying processes that support it.
So what we are looking right now, we're in this space. We're, the team CIP. So we have these maturity models that can help us assess different aspects of maturity of the organization. And then we have the system models, this BPMN stuff, that helps us, that describes how the system actually works. So if this was a sewer, you would say maturity tells me where, how much CSO, we're getting CSOs all over the place. We're getting SSOs all over the place. Where are we? And this is an equivalent to a hydraulic model. Analyze why are we getting it, designing something, and then plan. So there are two types of models. I talked about maturity. On the process side, it's the system models that help us. And we know how to do all this. We have now maturity models for this side. We have a number of BPMN models developed. We have, we're way, we're really on the way. It doesn't yet get to these last two steps of implementation. And this is where change management comes in. And we are working with the change management team to help us understand how do we integrate these things to help implementation, where the buying of people and the everything comes together. So
Deb Rose has her hand up.
Okay, Deb.
Cello.
Deb.
You hit it just on the last slide, but the biggest thing is it's really, really easy to say what technology we want, what makes sense, and figure out the business purpose, but we always leave out the people and how it's going to affect people. And that's what you call that holistic system that you're creating here and you have on this slide. Team change management, and monitoring. But it does start with including the people who are affected, not excluding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is from the change management team, and this is sort of like the change management zone, starts with kind of planning, but this is what their assessment was of what kind of challenges do they see in their organization. And you can see that lack of standard approach and methodology, engaging against all stakeholders and staff is not common. There are no guidelines, little awareness of change management. So that's why the stuff that we're doing with BPMN is very important to understand. And that's what us engineers, we want to give me the drawings, But this gives a glimpse of the challenges when we had a similar Mentimeter exercise with the change management team that show different types of barriers when we get to the later change management zone, where the people and everything else will make a difference. And it's not a mystery. We don't have to reinvent we don't have to invent all of this. We have a lot of stuff in place from other projects. So we would need to kind of fine tune it, pilot, implement, learn, and improve on these tools. Does this make any sense?
Yeah, I think so. So yeah,
Mhm.
Chilo, I think we're getting here down to the last 5 minutes. So
Yes.
are you
And this is
want to give
yeah,
folks a chance to
this
kind
is
of chime in.
yeah, and this is the last slide. I
Okay.
think that every organization, if you look at the thing on the left, is, you know, if we want to just keep driving, and we can say, let's do what made us successful in the past. Let's meet the current expectations, and let's look carefully at each component of the problem. That is one way to think about it. The other one is what will make the client, and we have clients internally. You know, if you're in engineering operations, maybe a client, successful in the future. And let's put ourselves in a position to meet new expectations. And let's focus on the interactions between the different, not just on each component. You know, let's just focus on technology. Let's just focus on the process. Let's just focus on the people. But let's look at the interactions. So that's the last slide. A little bit philosophical, I guess. So anyway, it all connects, but I want to stop sharing and just kind of get people a chance to, we want to hear people's voices. I apologize for talking a little bit too much this morning.
No, Chilo, I thought this was great. Just to kind of, again, pull it all together and also give us an update on, there's been a lot of progress in the other areas. And in our team, what I've seen is a similar theme is we're focusing on process and process improvement, but we're definitely, integrating into these other areas and have needs to do those other areas well of engaging with the people side and getting into implementation and doing change management and making some better and good decisions on the technology side too. So just with the last couple of minutes, any reactions or comments or questions? Guess I'll ask too, we got future meetings coming up. Is there a particular topic that you saw today that you're like, hey, I want to see something like a case study, or I want to see more on this particular thing as it relates to our challenges with CIP?
So Dan, there are examples, as you know, we've discussed this, of work that's going on, for example, in technology, where they're taking a portion of the CIP process and they're basically going through a business process and making decisions about technology. Potential future, topic could be to go over that to see how some of these things link together.
Okay. Very good. Well, yeah, so we'll take what we talked about today and feed that back to you guys. I know it's a lot to kind of process on a Monday morning. At least for me it is. So we'll get that kicked back out. And then just to let you know, I talked to Duncan, and he's looking at March 28th for sharing an update on the CIP planning and BCE improvement work that he's doing. Should be really interesting because he's in the process of doing, again, some of the people side with some training and implementation with staff. So we'll look forward to hearing that on the 28th. But we've got 2 meetings in February lined up, 2nd and 4th Monday. So 2 weeks from now, and then 4 weeks from now. For any of our folks, particularly Jenny and Zanetta, if you want to get on the calendar for one of those meetings, I'm reserving those spots for you guys. And then also March 14th. So Jenny, go ahead.
I was just interested because I saw a few folks, that connection between asset management and our CIP planning, that would be a topic of interest. And I believe the asset management group is working on life cycle delivery. And I feel like there's an opportunity there for maybe both groups to get together and just talk about that connection.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
Absolutely. I could second that one. Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll definitely plan this and have a joint call. you know, and although we're advocating systems thinking, we do have 6 different teams working on 6 different things. So we've got more than 80 people right now in, you know, a number of utilities working on different things. It's not easy to bring it all, you know, put everybody on the same bus. But we're doing the best we can to provide the glue and the connection between these things. This is an excellent example. Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, so we're pretty much at time, but hey, that's great comment. I think so. What we'll do is, like I say, for Jenny and Zanetta, I know you guys are working on improvements too. If you want to use one of the February or the first meeting in March to share an update or get feedback on what you're working on, let me know and we'll get that scheduled and lined up. You know, if not, that's fine too, and we'll that feedback on the asset management, we've been talking about that. We'll see if we can get something lined up with that team and what they're working on as it relates to CIP. And then to Scott's point, I think technology's got some stuff going on with, and we'll see if we can get something lined up with a presentation from that group. And we'll either do it, we'll try and do it as part of one of our meetings, or if we have to do it at one of theirs or whatever, we'll get people invited and get that communicated, and that may take the place of one of our meetings. So I don't want to add.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to add meetings, but yeah, go ahead.
And